It's mid-January 2026, and this week is our thorough pruning week. Most years I do the big deciduous prune in late December, after harvest and after leaf drop. But this winter, December was a mess of rain and wind, so I waited. I would rather prune a little later than make fresh cuts right before a storm. Welcome to With the Garden. Here in Los Angeles, in a cozy yard, I'm learning and sharing as I go. I hope you'll grow along with me. Let's begin. Now the garden feels ready. The weather is calmer, the structure is easier to read, and the branches finally sit still long enough to hold a thought. Before we cut anything, 2 principles I keep coming back to. First, pruning is not punishment, it's editing. I'm removing what the tree can't use well, so light and air can reach what it can. Second, clean tools matter. I've learned the hard way that moving from plant to plant with the same dirty blades is a great way to spread problems around the yard. So this week, I disinfect between trees, and I slow down even more if I see anything that looks off. My kit is simple. Bypass pruners, a pruning saw, gloves, and a little container of disinfectant, usually rubbing alcohol. I'm aiming for clean cuts, no torn bark, and no stubs. I work in a practical order because I cannot finish everything in one day. I start with the trees that are fully dormant and leafless, then I move to vines, and I finish with evergreens where I use a lighter hand. Late winter is useful because the structure is visible, and once growth restarts, the plants can move on quickly. And here's the scan I use on almost everything in the garden. First, hazards. Dead, broken, or diseased wood. Second, big shape. Set height and spread. Remove major offenders. Third, thin. Open the canopy for light and airflow. Finally, tidy. Crossings, inward growth. Suckers, small clutter. My first tree this week is our persimmon, our production champion, the one that basically pays rent in fruit. When it's bare, I can see the whole story at once, where the center is getting crowded, which shoots are racing straight up, and where the tree is shading itself. So, I focus on opening the middle and calming the height just a little. One thing I do on persimmon is step back constantly. A persimmon canopy can look fine up close and still be dense when you see it as a silhouette. I'm always chasing that feeling of open, readable branches. Next to the persimmon is our pomegranate. It grows fast, and if I ignore it for even one season, it turns into a thorny little jungle that starts leaning into everything around it. In most years, I end up taking about a third off just to keep it open and keep it from interfering with its neighboring trees. This week, I went further. I took back close to half of last year's new growth, plus 2 major branches, so the tree can stay airy, reachable, and well-behaved in this small space. Next is our nectarine, planted partly for the spring blossoms and the feeling of sitting under them. It's grown fast with a long reach, but it's never been a reliable producer for us, so it gets the stricter haircut. Nectarine is where I really commit to the open center. Vase shape. If the middle closes up, the whole tree turns into shade and long whips, so I thin hard in the center and try not to top, because topping just invites a spray of frantic regrowth. Our plumcot is one of the youngest trees in our garden, and it still hasn't flowered yet. I think it's been with us about 4 years now. A little over a year ago, I grafted 2 apricot branches onto it, and seeing those grafts take was one of those small garden victories that stays with you. Last year it pushed out long, springy shoots, so this week I brought the height down by more than half and thinned a couple of crowded branches. Now we wait. I'm genuinely eager to see what blooms show up first on this little hybrid tree, and what that might mean for fruit down the line. Our apple still has a lot of leaves, but I do a light prune anyway. The structure is there, and I can still see which branches are stacking or competing. In a small yard, I'm trying to keep one clear leader and avoid a crowded middle. Apples can get busy fast, so thinning is usually more helpful than shortening everything. Our jujube has been one of the most reliable fruiting trees in this garden, starting in its 4th year and returning year after year. This year, I'm actually leaving it alone. The height and width are already in a good place, and I've learned that with jujube, the best move is often not to fidget. There's a rhythm to pruning jujube anyway. One cut tends to stop, 2 cuts tend to sprout, so unless I truly need to correct something, I'd rather let a well-shaped tree stay well-shaped. Figs are forgiving, but they also teach restraint. When I overdo it, the tree answers with a jungle of growth that I then have to manage all summer. So winter fig pruning is mostly about clearing space and lifting the canopy where it's in the way. I keep the cuts calm and minimal. Mulberries are generous and also ambitious. We've had one grow so vigorously it overshadowed everything. So we cut it back, propagated smaller plants, and started again with a more manageable tree. With mulberry, I think long term. Smaller, steady corrections beat rare, dramatic cutbacks. And once sap is moving, some plants react dramatically to pruning, so I try to do the big decisions earlier or save them for after harvest. We cut our blackberry back in winter because I know it will come back with a burst of life in spring. In our case, this patch grows aggressively every year, and this year every cane fruited, so I cut all of them down. It looks brutal, but it's the reset that makes the patch usable again. Grapes are a winter puzzle, with a simple goal: finish before bud break and decide how much fruiting wood you want to carry into the season. I keep the permanent trunk and main arms, and I cut last season's growth back to short spurs. I'm basically clearing space for the new shoots that will carry fruit, instead of keeping a tangled history. The dragon fruit has gotten overgrown and crowded, so pruning is mostly untangling. I take out a lot of weak, damaged, or overcrowded stems, so the plants don't shade themselves into poor flowering, or collapse into each other as they get heavier. Now the evergreen trees, where I use a lighter hand. They don't have the same clean dormant reset, and it's easy to prune away next season's blooms if you get too enthusiastic. So here, I mostly remove damage and conflicts, and I save heavier shaping for when warm growth picks up. Our Cherimoya is in that late winter transition, shedding older leaves and pushing new growth and buds. This one has grown out of balance, so it's not just a tidy up. It's been reaching over the star fruit and getting too close to the persimmon, and the top has crept up toward the electric cable. So this week I'm bringing it down and in, and I'm making sure it plays nicely with its neighbors. If anything is truly close to a live power line, that's a stop and call someone moment. Our star fruit tree has been productive for years, but winter winds here can knock down a lot of fruit. So I prune with wind in mind, take out damaged limbs, thin lightly, and shorten those long sail-like branches that catch gusts. The size of our longan has really expanded since our harvest, with lots of new growth, and this year I pruned it much harder than usual. I removed about a third of the lower branches to lift the canopy up and open the space underneath. By the end, the shape shifted from a full, round tree into something more like an umbrella, airy on top and walkable below. And then came the best kind of surprise. High in the canopy, tucked deep in the leaves, I found 8 longans that escaped my early December harvest, like little forgotten treasures. We've cut moringa back hard before, and it came right back, like it had been waiting for permission. In a small yard, I've learned that moringa actually appreciates a firm reset. If I let it stretch, it turns tall and brittle, and wind will eventually do the pruning for me, whether I like it or not. Overall, this has been a week of real pruning acrobatics. A lot of reaching and stretching, lifting myself up, hauling the heavy ladder from tree to tree, climbing it, and more than once climbing into the trees themselves and balancing among branches to get one clean cut in the right place. By the end of the week, the garden always looks a little more honest, less leafy confusion, more readable structure, and the payoff comes later. Spring light reaches deeper, branches dry faster after morning moisture, and harvest becomes more manageable. Sometimes it really is calm hands, sometimes it's a ladder, and sometimes the best result of winter pruning is shaping the tree so I can climb and anchor myself safely when the fruit is high. One last reminder I keep repeating to myself in rainy winters: choose the driest window you can. Clean cuts, clean tools, and patience are the quiet skills that keep a backyard orchard healthy. That's how we prune in mid-January in Los Angeles. Not perfect, not rushed, just attentive. Thank you for watching. If this was helpful or inspiring, please give it a like, share, subscribe, and tell me what you're growing in the comments. See you next time in the garden.